Hey everybody, it's Dr. Joe, and I hope you're doing well. And today, in fact, I'm at one of my rental properties here in Washington, D.C. Hopefully, you can hear me okay. I do have a Wi-Fi connection, so hopefully the quality of the signal is good, and hopefully the quality of the audio is good as well. So, with that said and done, I want to welcome you for another Wealth Wednesday session. We're going to talk about the blueprint. I call it from zero to hero, and so on. So let's have a look. Put it on here. So it's a zero to hero property blueprint for new investors that are trying to develop a property portfolio. And the challenge is that I go to events, like I was at an event here at one of my houses last week, and people are always asking me, Dr. Joe, I haven't got anything yet in terms of purchase the property, but I do want to establish a portfolio. What do I need to do? What are the steps that you'd recommend? And therefore, with that said and done, I thought, well, let me focus on that this week and provide you with a blueprint. The reason why I'm in Washington is I just came from an event just now, and so great food and great drinks, and I had to leave early to do this what's it called, live stream. But anyway, bear with me. It's going to be good. Hopefully I'll provide you a lot of good information. And don't forget, at the end, about 20-30 minutes from now, we're going to do the Ask Dr. Joe. So if you've got some questions that you want to pose to me, anything to do with real estate investing, any problems or situations that you're encountering where you think that you want me to provide my take, please put them in the chat box, and I'll definitely get to them shortly. So let's have a look. In the end of the day, the real estate investment climate is changing, and it's always good to want to participate in real estate. It's always good to start developing a portfolio. As a wise man once told me, the best thing to do is to start early, buy properties, and if you can, keep them. Don't sell them, especially if you're in an appreciating market. It sounds very simplistic at a high level. Obviously, there's a lot more to it than that, and that's what we're going to talk about today. What is that roadmap? So that hopefully this journey that you're going to take is a pleasant experience and without a whole lot of heartache. And what are the insights, Dr. Joe? What are the tools that you can suggest, and what are the actionable steps that I can take such that I can get to where you are a lot faster, a lot more efficiently than me trying to figure it out. So that's the whole idea of today's event, live stream, and providing you with some of the, I'll call it blueprints or steps that you may want to consider as well. So let's start off with the first thing is to what I call master the basics. And what do I mean by that? I think what I mean is that the goal here is to ensure that your real estate investments will thrive in good times and bad markets, good times and bad times. It's not always good. Interest rates are kind of getting high now. I think it's around 8% now, and so it's slowing down. It goes through cycles, and I think I've been through 5 of them. So the idea is to build, ensure that your real estate investments can thrive, even during the good times and the bad, times. So what does that mean? It means that you've got to understand what I call core principles. That you need to understand before you actually start going. So seasoned investors like you and I, we kind of know that at the end of the day, research is key. You can't just buy anything anywhere. I know what some of these gurus tell you: just start buying. All you think about is it a good deal? No, it's not as simple as that. I think that what you buy, where you buy, is also very, very important. So research is the key to make sure that what you buy is in tune with your long-term goals for your investment portfolio. So, for example, give an example of this person called John. John is it's an investor or budding investor. He's done the research. He's looked at different patterns in a particular area. He's decided that he's going to invest in, let's just call it state A. And within state A, he's decided to go to city or suburban B, wherever that is. And he's done the research and decided that he wants to zero in on a particular set of neighborhoods or zip codes. Okay, he's done the research. He's done the analysis. He looked at the historical data. He understands the local economy where A is, and he's decided that there's a strategy for investing that makes sense. You follow me? So it's not just, he didn't just wake up one day and say, "We just buy this house, this location because it's a good deal." No, he's decided strategically that it makes sense to buy in this particular area based on the research, based on the data, based on historical patterns. Okay, so that's the key. Is that now, if you don't have that information, then obviously there are people out there who can help you. These are knowledgeable people. It could be real estate agents, it could be appraisers, it could be other investors. You can go to attend meetings where hopefully you can network with like-minded people who can share with you that information. And so hopefully there are people who can give you some insights that will help you in terms of where you want to buy. Okay, so that's in terms of some of the analysis. Obviously, finance, which is what we talked about last week, is very, very important. Your ability to execute, your ability to get the money once you've chosen your area is also there because quite important. So let's just say that Sarah, another person, fictitious name, she has limited capital. And she's got some money, but not enough. And therefore, she's become educated by, do some classes or courses or online events and things like that. So she's got some ideas of what she can do to get financing, given her limited means. So she's realized that, hey, maybe I can do a house hack for my first property, because if I live there, then I may be able to get lower interest rate loans, and also my down payment requirements are lower. And therefore, I may be able to get in than if I was to go to a non-owner occupied type property. Okay, so they've also explored conventional mortgages, FHA mortgages, hard money loans, and creative financing. In fact, today, one of the meetings, I was talking to Nick, and he was telling me about some of the creative strategies that he's exploring. Things like subject to, some things like owner financing. And I've done some of those, and they're all doable, especially if you have a seller whose situation whereby he or she is open to that. Even the BRRRR strategy, whereby you can take a limited amount of money, buy a property, renovate the property, increase the value, and then refinance based on the new value. So hopefully you can recycle your funds over. These are creative strategies for people who have limited funds and financing. The other thing in terms of learning the basics is I think it's always good to network. There are people out there who are more seasoned than you. There are people out there who've made the mistakes. There are people out there who can help you avoid making unnecessary mistakes that you may want to latch onto, speak to, encourage, and incite, and sort of encourage them to help you, which means that you have to create some kind of win-win scenario. Win-win scenario where hopefully, again, the goal is to learn the basics so you can avoid making mistakes, so you can get to where you need to go for. So that's what I mean by, ensure that, your strategy or the purchases that you have before you get too far will stand the test of time. You'll buy properties whereby hopefully if the market tanks, you'll still be able to survive. You've done the research, you've had the basics of education, you've networked with the right people, and therefore you can make good, solid decisions. So what are some of the action items based on number one, which is mastering the basics that you can do today? Let's have a look. Number one is, let's have a look. Dive deep, okay? Dedicate some time for researching local area, whichever areas you're interested in. That's something you can do. Understand the current trends in that particular area. Try to understand future developments that are taking place in that area. What are the economic forecasts for this area that you're interested in. Maybe you can speak to some of the local officials or speak to knowledgeable people who can tell you what's going on in that particular area, and in order to get some valuable information and valuable insights. The other thing, an action item that you can do, is a network. As I said before, no man is an island. There are people out there who are more knowledgeable than you, and you want to tap into that. So attend real estate network events, join online forums, engage with seasoned investors and seasoned, experienced people, real estate agents, property managers. These people can give you valuable insights into the market dynamics and also where the potential opportunities are going to be. That's an action item that you can take today. Another action item in terms of learning the basics is to invest in your education and your learning. Okay. There are inexpensive courses out there. There's some expensive ones. There's some free ones. There's some online. There's some, classes, seminars, and so on that you can attend, whereby you can get this information. You should be investing in your learning and your education, and you can learn things about how to do analysis, how to decide if it's a deal or no deal, good, pull the trigger or not. And there's a lot of tools out there that can also help you in the decision-making process. And once you've actually purchased the home, help you execute all the way through to completion. So again, there's some investments in terms of your education and learning, which is what I recommend. These are action items. So the 3 action items: dive deep, network, and also invest in your education and learning. Okay, so that's number 1, mastering the basics. Number 2 is at some point you're gonna have to buy, and strategically. And what do I mean by that? The goal here is to ensure you're making smart property choices, especially in competitive markets. Okay, so the idea is that you're making smart decisions when you're buying. You're buying strategically, as opposed to just buying anything that shows up on your desk or on your inbox and so on, because the market, even though it's still tough, it's still very competitive. And I don't envision that's going to change anytime soon. Okay, so you need to be able to survive and operate in that environment. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that you're going to be on the lookout for hidden gems. You're going to have your criteria clearly established in terms of what it is that you're trying to look for, and sharing that information with wholesalers, real estate agents, bird dogs, and so on. You're going to develop your negotiation skills, okay? Because at some point, you may have to negotiate with sellers. You may have to negotiate with bankers. You may have to negotiate with real estate agents. You're going to have to negotiate, because sometimes what they offer you is not always the best deal. You may have to go some backwards and forwards, like I always do. Just because the seller wants this price doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to pay it. I'm going to have to go to, if it makes sense, fine. If it doesn't, we're going to go through some backwards and forwards, and hopefully we'll come to a compromise that makes sense for all parties. You may want to consider other sources for deals, like auctions. And if you're going to do that, obviously you're going to need to know the legal process wherever the property is located. You're going to have to develop some negotiation skills. Okay. And, you're going to do some active listening, try to understand what the sellers are looking for, understand the seller's motivations. And, the goal is to create win-win scenarios that make sense for you, make sense for the seller, and make sense for all parties. You're going to obviously need to do some investigation about the property, to make sure that at least there's nothing hidden in terms of inspections that you're going to have to conduct. You're going to have to know to a certain extent how much to offer, and how much to offer in a deal will depend on the condition of the property, the location, etc. So again, these are some of the things that are important in terms of strategically buying. Now, what are the action items associated with number 2, which is to strategically purchase or acquire properties? Action item number 1, develop your negotiation skills. Learning, there are some techniques to negotiations. I'm not saying that I'm the greatest. I'm learning. I'm okay. I can be better. I'm definitely a lot better than I used to be. And you can learn through books, podcasts, even negotiation workshops. And these can enhance your skill sets in these areas. Practice negotiations. Before you enter into a deal, maybe try to understand where it is, where the seller is coming from. And hopefully, by understanding where they're coming from, you can come up with counterpoints to points that they're going to make. The other thing is legal knowledge. In terms of strategically, if you're going to buy things like at auctions, or if you're going to do rental properties, I'm not saying you need to be an attorney, no, but you need to have an idea of how the real estate, some of the laws that you may be impacted by. You need to be knowledgeable about. So if you're going to be renting properties, you're going to need to at least know the basics of landlord-tenant laws in that jurisdiction. Are they pro-tenant? Are they pro-landlord? Which is it? What's the process that you need to do to give people notice? Is it 30 days? Is it 60 days? What's the eviction process like? What are some jurisdictions, in fact, most jurisdictions now require licensing if you're going to rent a property. What are those rules? What are the steps that you need to take before you can get a business license for renting, and so on? So some level of legal knowledge is, I think, it's not critical, but I think it's very advisable. And if you don't know or don't want to know, obviously you want to associate with people that can help you, whether it be attorneys and people who are a bit more seasoned and can give you good information and so on. The other thing about strategic buying is, obviously inspections. You want to make sure that when you buy a property, you know what you're getting into. There's nothing worse than, you're thinking there's something behind this wall, there's nothing there, or something that when you demo that wall, you see things that you don't want to see. It's not good. Been there, done that, and so on. So never skip out, especially if you're beginning on inspections. And so find good, reliable inspectors who specialize in residential properties, if that's what you want to do. And you got to be able to spend some time with them so they can help you interpret the reports that they create. Because many times there are some hidden items that you want to sort of be aware of, such that you go into this deal with your eyes open. Okay, moving right along. As I said before, we're going to have the Q&A session, Ask Dr. Joe, very shortly. So if you've got some questions that you want to pose to me, please put them in the chat box, and I will definitely try to get to you, in about another 10 minutes or so. Hopefully this is helpful. Again, the whole idea here is some of the basics, some of the things that you need to do in order to go from zero to a property portfolio, from zero to property hero. How about that? So we've done number one, which was master the basics. And we talked about that. And we talked about number two, which is strategic property acquisition. Don't just buy anything anywhere. You buy things strategically. Let's go to number three, which at some point, you're going to have to start building your portfolio, and possibly you may want to consider diversifying your portfolio. And, this is a little controversial. Some people say they want to put all their eggs in one basket, and which is fine. They want to be, they don't want to be a jack of all trades. They want to be a master of one. And there's definitely value in that. And so as you diversify, some people say, well, you should diversify. And some people say, no, I want to be the master of one, and so on. But either way, you're going to have to start building your portfolio first. And so the goal here in number three is to safeguard your investments by diversifying intelligently. So again, you're going to build a portfolio, but obviously you want to safeguard that portfolio. And if you're going to diversify, then you want to diversify intelligently. That's what we're going to do here. That's the goal of this next part. So what does that mean? It means that in some parts of the country, diversification is not just a strategy; it's a necessity. A mixture of different properties, different geographical properties, different zip codes, different regions, different types, whether it be multifamily, single family, commercial, and so on. Some places you've got to in order to survive because there's just so many uncertainties going on. Other times it's not necessary. I'm very, very focused. I don't really have a diverse portfolio in the sense that I have properties scattered all around the country, or I just have my properties in certain close in parts of Washington, D.C. I know this market. I understand this market. I'm very comfortable with that. I don't need to start buying stuff across the country, across the state, and so on. I want to put all my eggs close to where I'm watching them, and so on. So so let's take a case of a lady called Sarah. So Sarah wants to diversify. So she bought single families first, and then she maybe bought 4-unit buildings, and ultimately she expanded into commercial. Her goal was to have a diverse portfolio. So therefore, when the market shifts or changes, if one percent of her portfolio is doing well, maybe another one may not be doing too well. So they kind of offset each other. That's her rationale, which makes sense. My thing in terms of what I do to diversify my income stream is all Section 8. Section 8, it doesn't really matter if the recession is here or not. As long as that tenant's in that house, then the federal government is going to guarantee a significant portion of the rent. So it's more of a cash flow safety net that I have through the Section 8 program. And that's really, really helped me through the last 5 real estate market cycles. Other people want to diversify, maybe having some short-term rentals and or buy properties in different locations, geographical locations. The thinking is that if one market is not doing too well, maybe a portfolio in another market will offset that. Again, there are no right way or wrong way. It's really what you're comfortable with, what makes sense for you. I'm just sharing with you that it's important to safeguard your portfolio once you start developing that. And one way to do that is to watch it like a hawk. Another way is to diversify. And, but the bottom line is to, be careful, and you want to protect your cash flow, because that's the key. That's what's going to bring you, income every month and so on. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. So what are the action items associated with safeguarding, building and diversifying a portfolio? What are some of the action items that we can talk about? Number one would be market analysis. Obviously, you want to explore different neighborhoods, different markets. You want to learn the patterns of growth. You want to look at economic indicators, employment rates. You want to look at infrastructure developments. Is there stuff going on in that area that you need to be aware of that may affect your investments in a good way or a bad way? The next thing is another action item would be the property type mix. What kind of properties that you want to invest in terms of safeguarding and diversifying your portfolio. I talked about some people want to do a mixture of single family, multifamily, commercial, a mixture of short-term rentals versus long-term rentals. There are pros and cons. There are advantages and disadvantages in each one of those things, and so you need to determine your risk tolerance, and that will then determine exactly how much and how you want to invest and so on. And the other thing which a lot of people overlook is what I call stress testing. Stress test your portfolio. What that means is that simulate economic downturns. What's going to happen if your rent goes down by 5%, 10%? If you have vacancies, what's the impact on your cash flow? Are you able to survive those incidences? If not, then you're going to need to have greater reserves, and so on. So, it's always good to stress test your portfolio, which means that make sure you have the right amount of reserves such that you can survive good times and short-term, difficulties and short-term challenges. So what that does is that stress testing helps you identify some areas where you're vulnerable. Okay. And so now you can start developing what I call contingency plans. Okay. You want to have those contingency plans in place before they occur. And that way, if you get hit by a curveball, it's not going to take you down. You're going to be able to say, okay, let's go to plan B or whatever it is. And then finally, number 4, is tenant relationships. Let's see, what time is it? 7:27. Okay, we're gonna get down to Q&A very shortly. So please put your questions in the chat box, and I'll definitely go to them in about 5 minutes or so. So finally is the tenant relationships and property management. This is all part of, again, the blueprint for developing a portfolio. If you're going to have a portfolio, you're probably going to have multiple rental properties, and therefore you're going to have a need to understand tenant relationships and also how to manage properties. So the goal here is to foster long-term positive relationships with your tenants for sustainable income. You want to foster long-term positive relationships with your tenants for sustainable income. Okay, I like long-term tenants. I like zero turnover. I invest in the relationships I have with my tenants. Why? Because in the end, it's good business. If the tenants are happy, they're going to take care of your property. If the tenants are happy, they're going to stay a long time. If the tenants are happy, they're going to be pleasant to deal with. And if the tenants are happy, they're more likely to pay your rent. Okay, so these are some of the things that's really important as it pertains to the whole property management, tenant relationships, and things like that. So what can you do? You can invest in the relationship. You can invest in communication. You can have tenant portals. You can have, like what I do, communicate with your tenants on a regular basis. Check in with them every now and then. You can have surveys to see how they're doing, surveys to see if there's any improvements that you can have. There's things that you can do to foster long-term positive relationships with your tenants. So what are some of the action items that you may want to consider in these areas? Community building, tenant building, relationship building, organize tenant events. I give my tenants bouquets of flowers, Christmas presents, vacations. This is what I do. You encourage interactions with your tenants. If you're in a multifamily, but just check in every now and then with them. Let them know that you're thinking about them. Find out if they're happy, if there's any issues, if there's any problems. And you want to kind of build a sense of community. You want to establish firewalls between the tenants and other people who are trying to poach them. Okay, you want your tenants to have no reason to want to leave you. Action item: clear communications. Communications. It's really important to establish that. And it's always good to have open channels of communications with your tenants. There's software out there that you can use that can foster that. And also you can, when there's issues, you can try to respond quickly, efficiently, and have an approachable demeanor whereby they can feel comfortable approaching you for whatever reason. And the other thing you can do, action item, is regular property maintenance of your property. Invest in time to do some proactive maintenance. Invest in time in doing repairs in a timely manner when something goes wrong. And as we all know, happy tenants are more likely to renew their leases, and also they're more likely to recommend your property to other people. So that, my friends, is about it. So let me just wrap it up by saying that in the whole realm of real estate investing, knowledge is power. You need a blueprint, and I've shared with you a blueprint for from starting from zero to hopefully developing your business portfolio. It takes diligence. It's not easy. It takes hard work. It takes adaptability, and it takes an effort on your part. Mastering the basics, strategically acquiring properties, diversifying your portfolio, and fostering positive tenant relationships. These are things, in my opinion, are the bedrock for your blueprint. And hopefully what I've shared with you today will help you on your journey from ground zero to be a property hero. So I want to see you at the top when you establish your portfolio. And if you have any questions, let me know. So hopefully that's about it. So let's go to the Q&A. Again, you enter your questions in the chat box. And if you want to shoot me an email, if you want to reach out to me, you can always reach me at joe@joeasamoah.com, joe@joeasamoah.com. I'll do the best I can to respond to your emails and questions. So let's go down to the Q&A. So if you've got some questions, please put them in the chat box, and I'll try and answer them as soon as possible. Hold on a second. Oh, boy, that was good. Okay, let's have a look. Marlon, I can hear you loud and clear. Hope you're doing well, Marlon. And Ken He. Let's go, Dr. Joe. Hey, Ken. It's a great time. I really enjoyed a podcast that we did together. And hopefully, we can continue the relationship. If I can help you out, I definitely will try to do that. Dow 2, how you doing, man? Greetings from Phoenix. Hoping the weather is not too hot down there in hot Phoenix. And greetings from Los Angeles, Valerie Ashford Brown, Alvin. Is this Alvin, or maybe it is? Okay. Hey, Alvin. Hope you're doing well. And, hope all's well in your world. Diaspora Voices, Elena, Annie Jones, Dr. Joe. Hey, Diaspora Voices. Hope you're doing well. Okay, good. Yoli, Dr. Joe, you mentioned real estate investment tools that can be used through completion of the investment process. Recommend some, please. Now, there are lots of different tools out there. There are online tools. There are tools that you can download onto your computer. Basic tools, for example, for analysis, a tool that I use for analysis, there's Deal Check. I think Bigger Pockets has analysis tools. There are quite a few of these online calculators that will kind of, if you plug in the numbers, it'll give you some idea of, NOI, net operating, income. It'll give you an idea of cash on cash return, give you an idea of cash flow, whether you should buy or not buy. So these are some of the tools you can use for the analysis. Now, once you've purchased the house, there are tools that you can use to manage the rehab process. There's quite a few of those tools out there, construction management tools. You could just use a simple Excel spreadsheet or Google Sheets, to manage the project from start to finish. There's tools there. Obviously, if you rent the property, there are property management software tools. Buildio, Appfolio, Rent Ready, to name just a few. There's quite a few of those tools. They help you manage the property. If you're doing the finances, another tool would be like QuickBooks, and to track the inflow and outflow. So there's quite a few tools out there. And again, everybody's different. Some people are more tech savvy than others. But the idea is to help you in terms of overseeing the process and leverage technology. I'm hearing that there's even some AI tools out there now that can also assist in this process of the life cycle for real estate management. So yeah, check it out, Yoli. There are quite a few tools out there. Maybe I'll do a session just on tools only and go through some examples. But hopefully that is a quick snapshot that will help you. If you have additional questions, please let me know. Hold on. Whew, that was good. Okay, let's have a look. The next one is Get Lobbyster. Curious to learn what your take on LLCs are for the average real estate investor. I've done some research on the pros and cons, but want to hear from somebody who's not an attorney. Thank you so much. Okay, so the pros and cons of doing real estate in a LLC. Well, the pros are obviously there's liability protection. Now that you're an entity, you can separate your personal from your business. Okay, as long as you set up the LLC correctly, you register with the state, you pay the necessary fees, and you do all those things that you're supposed to do for an LLC. If you do that, then you're good. If you don't, then obviously it's almost as good as not having one. So if you're going to do an LLC, you want to make sure that you comply with all the requirements of that. There's quite a few of them. So asset protection, liability protection, separation of your business from your personal, and and so on. So these are some of the advantages. Some of the disadvantages, there's a cost associated with it, obviously. If you're going to finance with an LLC, you generally pay more money, higher interest rate. You tend to get more into commercial loans as opposed to residential loans. And what else? it can be a little expensive. Like in Washington, Maryland area, it's $300 per year per LLC in terms of filing fees. So if you got a lot of properties and you got a lot of LLCs, that can rack up after a while quite a bit. And so that's some of the downside. My thing is, my take, if you're deciding, well, do I do LLC or not LLC? And that's the reason why you're not buying, because you haven't decided. I would say buy the house. Let's get some assets first, and then we'll worry about asset protection afterwards. Because some people use that as an excuse not to pull the trigger. And you don't want to do that. There are advantages and disadvantages. The stars will never all align. The important thing is to take action and start. The other stuff you can figure out later on, but don't use that as an excuse not to do anything. Okay? And because you know, if you start building momentum, you start learning, you start getting some encouragement, you start getting motivation, and that will lead you and encourage you to go on to the next one, and so forth. Yoli, thoughts on REITs, Dr. Joe, in portfolio? REITs, real estate investment trust. That's what REITs are. REITs are, again, I'm not a financial planner, but my take on REITs are that they are essentially stocks or securities that invest in real estate. I don't have any REITs. I don't invest in REITs, so I'm not in a position to give you the good or bad. I just know that they tend to be more focused on real estate investments as opposed to other types of investment vehicles and so on. So I'm not an expert there, so I really don't feel comfortable telling you whether to do it or not. And so you may want to approach a financial planner and get their expertise and their advice. If you're going to go REITs, well, which ones to go and why, and the pros and cons, and some of the good ones for the bad ones, and so on. Hi, Dr. Joe. Sean Scarborough. Hey, Sean, man. How's it going? Thanks for joining us. Again, if you got some questions, please put them in the chat box. I'm going to try to get to them. Sebastian. Hi, Dr. Joe. Thoughts on buying your first deal in a lower price market such as Baltimore? Again, there are pros and cons. The important thing is to get started. If all you can afford is lower price properties in lower price markets, then so be it. It is what it is. If you can't afford a Rolls Royce, it doesn't mean you shouldn't get a car. You may want to start off with a lower price car, and then ultimately, as time goes by, you can afford a better quality car. But at least you got a car to get around. So my thing is that if your budget only allows you to buy in lower price markets, then it is what it is. That's where you start. That's where you can afford, but you get going. It doesn't necessarily mean that's where you end up, but it just means that's where you start. So you start where you can and let the rest take care of itself. So let's get the first deal going. If it means that you need to invest in a lower price market, then so be it. And, it's okay. It doesn't necessarily mean that's where you end up. It just means that that's where you start. And let time take care of the rest. You start building up momentum. And then you go from a D neighborhood or D price point to maybe a C or C minus, and then ultimately to a C, and then maybe a C plus, and so forth. That's how I did it. I didn't start off in B neighborhoods. I started off where I could afford. And over time, I was able to go from a D to a D plus, to a C minus, to a C, to a C plus, to a B minus, and so forth and so on. Okay, hopefully that was helpful. Sean, hi, Dr. Joe in California. Do I need a special permit to accept voucher holders? Generally not. You don't need a permit per se. What you do need, though, is that you need to make sure that you are licensed in your area of jurisdiction. You do have a landlord's license or a renter's license to do business. So you want to do that, and each jurisdiction will have different requirements on how to get that. It may require paperwork. It may require an inspection. It may require a hybrid. It may require some kind of disclosures or whatever it is. So it just varies. And but you need to be in compliance with local laws such that if you run into a foul of the laws, you have the laws to protect you. Because many times you have very pro-tenant jurisdictions. And if you're a tenant and if you're a landlord and a tenant is giving you a hard time, depending on where you are, oh my goodness, it could be really, really difficult. That's some good questions today. Let's have a look. Get Lobster. Can one write off expenses related to the property when one does not have LLC set up for the property? So you got a property. It's not yet set up in an LLC. So it's only a personal name. Depending on what you want to do. Again, I'm not a CPA, but my take is that if it's for business, then it's a business expense. And if it's a business expense, then it could be used, the expenses anyway, could be used to offset the business income. So the expenses offset the income. And as long as it's a legitimate business and you meet the criteria associated with that, I don't think you need to have an LLC in order to claim. No, you don't. Absolutely do not, because a lot of people own real estate in their personal name. And they put their information on the Schedule E on the tax return, as opposed to a 1065 and a K1s and things like that. So, but they all ultimately flow to what we call the 1040. So again, I don't want to get too technical, but yes, you can, as long as it's a business and you qualify it as a business, then yes, your expenses can be used to offset the income. Yeah, because I mean, when I first started that, I was buying properties in my personal name. I didn't buy LLCs. I didn't put it in LLCs. And I recorded the income and outflows through my Schedule E on my tax return. And through the Schedule E's, it then flows into the 1040. As I started buying stuff in LLCs, then we use a different return. But ultimately, again, it flows through the K1 down to the your 1040 and so on. But yeah, I mean, I was thinking that when I was working, I mean, real estate can be quite a good tax shelter. It can definitely offset your income. When I was working, I was earning a pretty good salary, but my rental income was able to shelter quite a bit of my non-real estate income. So I was probably paying less taxes than my colleagues at my job, who may be even earning more than me, but I was paying way less rent. Way less taxes, because the real estate was able to shelter part of my income. You got things like depreciation. You got you can write off expenses. There's a lot of things you can do if you've got a good CPA. Again, I'm not a CPA, but it may be worthwhile to get a CPA or a bookkeeper who understands real estate, and therefore they can advise you. Okay, Jolie, thank you. Hi, Dr. Joe. Thoughts on buying your first deal? I think I've done in Cleveland. I think I don't know too much about Cleveland. So where you're saying that Cleveland is a low price market, maybe is, I don't know. I don't own anything in Cleveland. I don't know the dynamics of Cleveland. I don't know the historical trends. But if there's a good demand for housing, then it's definitely worthy. If it's a low price market, it's probably a more cash flow play where you can buy and then you can rent it and get decent cash flow. You may not get the appreciation, but it sounds like you'll get the cash flow. So again, that's a good strategy if you want to sort of start developing cash flow. Another play is appreciation play. So you'll tend to buy more in markets where historically they tend to increase in value. So you're probably going to pay a little bit more. You probably get less cash flow, but over time you tend to get more appreciation and so on. So again, each person is different as to what's important for them. I like the appreciation play, but I also like the cash flow play. So I put my systems together where I get both cash flow and appreciation. Valerie. Alvin Brown. Hey, Alvin, you're in LA until the end of the month. Okay. Well, I hope all is going well in LA. Hope it's going well. Also, your rental property here in Washington, D.C. And hopefully things are going well for you. It's 800 in California. I'm not sure 800. Is that the fee for registration of LLCs? $800. Wow, that's expensive. So yeah, if you're going to pay $800 per LLC, you know, if you have I don't know, 4 LLCs. That's $3,200 a year. If you have 4 properties in 4 different LLCs, it gets kind of expensive. So that's why, just having a boatload of LLCs. I mean, it sounds good in theory, but in real world, it can be quite expensive. It could be quite cost prohibitive as well. So good. Thanks a lot for the point, Sean. Hi, Dr. Joe. This is from Katie. When you first started working with Section 8, did you have a mentor that helped you navigate the housing program? Do you have any suggestions or recommend resources for learning? When I first started, I didn't know anybody. I was just winging it. And I've got the gray hair to prove it. I definitely, looking back now, I mean, I survived. I think there's a more efficient way. I think, I didn't have access to Dr. Joe, so I didn't have access to people who could give me advice. I just had to learn from what we call the school of hard knocks. So, I think there's a better way. There's more information out here. There's more seasoned investors like myself out there who can help you. And I'm always trying to encourage people to do what I do. I'm always encouraging people to learn from my mistakes. So if I can be of assistance to you on your journey, that may be a lot more efficient than you trying to figure it out, Katie. There's really no reason for you to figure it out. Get yourself a mentor or coach. It could be me, it could be somebody else. It's okay. In terms of suggestions for recommended resources, I would just say find somebody who is successfully doing what it is that you want to do in your local area, if possible, who is successfully doing what it is that you want to do. If you can find people like that, get them to, somehow create some kind of incentive for them to work with you, that will save you so much time, stress, frustration, heartache, whatever you want to call it. That'll be my suggestion. But obviously, there's a lot of online platforms out there. There's Bigger Pockets. There's YouTube videos. But, sometimes nothing beats a seasoned investor who's successfully doing what it is that you want to do. Nothing beats that because they live in the real world, and you can learn from their mistakes rather than you trying to make the same mistakes yourself. Thanks a lot, Katie. The program, the regulations, etc. Yeah, that's it. Just learn from other people. Mahogany PR. 749. Okay, we've got a lot of questions today. Thank you. Mahogany PR. Hello, first time catching you live. How may I find out back taxes, outstanding fees due, etc. on auction properties? Auction properties. I used to attend auctions. In fact, I bought several properties. In fact, the house where I am right now doing this live stream, I purchased at an auction. Auctions are kind of hit and miss. They're a lot more riskier, especially those auctions whereby you don't get a chance to go inside. So you buy it as is, where is. In fact, this house where I'm at now, I bought it without going inside. I didn't know what the inside was like. I had to drive by, look at it and say, okay, it's probably good inside, or it's probably, let me allocate some money for repairs. I didn't know. There was somebody in here, the owner lived here. And I knocked on the door a couple of times. He didn't want to open the door, so I didn't know. It's definitely high risky. But you can get some good deals if you do your homework, do your due diligence, and you don't get fall prey for emotions. Because at auctions, emotions can kick in real fast. Where somebody offers a little bit more than you, next thing you know, you're into a bidding war. And then you end up overpaying for the house. So be careful. But how do you find out about back taxes? You can go to the public records usually. Normally most jurisdictions have their tax information online. So you can go online and see how much taxes is owed. That's one way. If there's any outstanding fees, usually there's some kind of disclosure at the auction, whether it be at the courthouse steps or whatever it is. So before the auction takes place, the auctioneer usually rolls off a whole bunch of different, legal mumbo jumbo, and they'll tell you, or at least they'll disclose what's going on, and if you are buying the house subject to another mortgage, or whether you're buying it outright, and how long you have to close, and and whether you can, there's a whole bunch of stuff that they'll announce before the auction, and then you got to bring usually you bring some kind of deposit to the auction, and if you're the highest bidder, then you either have to come up with the rest of the money the same day, the next week, the next month, or whatever it is. There's a period. Again, you need to learn all this if you're going to venture into that space. You don't want to learn, the hard way and lose your down payment money and so on. So thank you so much for your responses. You're welcome. $800 for fees. I think we covered that one. Diaspora, thank you very kindly. Sebastian Mises, where do you run your comparables? You got Realtor. I have access to MLS. So there's ways you can get access to the MLS. And if you don't have access, there are real estate agents that do, and they can do it for you. Now, there are some tools out there, like Redfin has something, Zillow has something, where you can plug in the address and they'll give you an estimate of what they think, what the algorithm thinks your house is worth. It's not as accurate, obviously, as the MLS, because the MLS gives you real data as opposed to algorithmic data and so on. So yeah, if you can connect to a local real estate agent or broker, they can help you get comparables. Yoli, what type of property insurance do you use? Depends. If it's, I typically, we do a lot of talking, so so what kind of insurance to get depends. If it's a rental, obviously you get landlord's insurance. I also get what we call umbrella insurance, which overlays the underlying insurance. You can get obviously liability insurance. If you're doing rehabs, you may want to get what we call builder's risk insurance. There's lots of different types of insurances. Tenants can get tenants insurance. But if you want to speak to a good insurance agent, they can advise you to make sure that you have the right coverage and the right amounts, and so that way, if something happens, you're covered. You don't want to find out the hard way that something's happened and you're not covered. It's not good. Charles, hey Charles, hope you're doing well. Thanks for the session. Yeah, I think we had a good time last Saturday, Charles. I think you enjoyed it. I know the feedback I got was very, very positive. So I'm definitely looking forward to doing that again. How come you chose not to diversify your portfolio? And have you ever thought about scaling by doing commercial deals? I just decided that I wanted to be a master of one rather than a jack of all trades, if that makes sense. I understand residential real estate, single family homes. I understand it. And I've taken the time to develop expertise in that arena. I've taken the time to develop relationships in that arena. And, as the saying goes, the grass is not always greener on the other side. I didn't want to fall into what we call the, what's that saying goes? Shiny object. Is that what you call it? Shiny object thing where, today I'm doing this, tomorrow I'm going to do something else because it sounds good. Or I spoke to somebody who's doing that, and therefore let me do it as well. Just because somebody's doing A doesn't necessarily mean that you should also do A. It's whatever you choose is hard work. It's not easy. Nothing is easy. Otherwise, everybody will do it. I just decided that I didn't want to be a jack of all trades. I went to these real estate investments where 1 week or 1 month they got this guy, talking about lease options. The next week they got another guy talking about fix and flips. And then a week after that, another guy's talking about wholesale. And the week after that, someone's talking about buy and hold. And the week after that, someone's talking, all this stuff. It sounds good. And, but it can distract you. And so I just decided this is my niche. This is what I wanted to learn Section 8. There's a reason for that. It's because it's recession resistant. you know, you get your money regardless of the cycle, the life cycle, whatever the market conditions, as long as the tenants are there. So it just made sense to me. And therefore I invested my time and energy in really mastering that, rather than sort of getting trying to take on too much. So that's just me. I'm not saying that everybody needs to do that. I'm just giving my rationale. Hopefully it makes sense. But the grass is not always green on the other side. You know, it's not. It's all the same. It takes hard work, and anybody who tells you it's not hard work is lying to you. So that's the reason why, Charles, I decided to focus my portfolio. I like single families because if I want to sell it, it's easier to sell as opposed to multifamily, where, you know, you can only sell to investors. Single family, you can sell to homeowners. And there's always people looking for single families. For every one person that wants a commercial or a multifamily, there's 100 that you could sell, and they're looking for single family. So it's just a wider, you know, seller pool out there, and it's easy to get rid of if you have to get rid of it. So yeah, that's the rationale behind it. I haven't done commercial. Again, I haven't. I'm not saying why. It's just like what I said before. I just decided that this is my niche, and I'd rather be the master of one area as opposed to a jack of all trades of all the other areas. Good question, though, Charles. Mahogany, thank you. You're welcome. What's the time? 7:58. Let's wrap it up then. Final question. Sebastian, enjoying this live. In your opinion, what is the trickiest part of the BRRRR method for you? Trickiest part of the BRRRR, the challenging part, I think, well, they're all tricky. The challenging part is on the refinance, because, you know, once you've done all the work, you've bought the house, you renovated the house, you know, you got a tenant in there. Now is the moment of truth. Is the value there where you can refinance? And if it's not there, then you may not be able to pull out as much as what you thought. And you know, all your calculations, all your assumptions go for naught. So they're all tricky, but I think the refinance is the trickiest one, because to a certain extent it depends on the market that you're in, and if the market tanks while you're doing the renovations, you may not be able to pull out as much because the ARV, after repair value, is not as high as what you thought it would be. Okay, I think we're good for today. Giants are on fire. Good. Any good markets for investing? Oh my goodness, there's all good markets, and that's it. So my friends, that is 8 o'clock. Hopefully it was a good session. A lot of good questions, and hopefully it's helpful. Don't forget, I'll see you next Wednesday, same time, 7 p.m. Eastern time, and we'll have another subject. And I'll see you at the top. And hopefully this was helpful. And please listen again. And my goal is to encourage people to replicate what I do. It's a good business, and I enjoy helping people. So I look forward to hopefully seeing you next week. And if you can help, if there's anything you can do, if there's any questions, please bring it next Wednesday. You can always shoot me an email. Okay, my friends, I'll see you guys next week. Take care. Bye for now.